Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guest on this next interview. Now, as the 2024 U.S. presidential election approaches, recent polls indicate a razor-thin race between Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump. Voters are divided on key issues like the economy and illegal migration, with each candidate holding narrow leads in different battleground states. The outcome could come down to voter turnout and independence. Joining us today on TVP World to break down these dynamics is Tomasz Obremski from the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, we have a very hard task today. As we know, it's going to go down to a coin flip whether Kamala or Trump will take the election. So any of our readings of the polls today, as well as the results of the election, is, of course, will either be vindicated or we will be embarrassed. But we're no cowards. Let's discuss the latest polling. What do you think that the kind of closing of the margin means for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris this close into the election?
Well, first of all, I think the popular polls are not adequate to predict the results, because in the end, it's going to be few swing states that's going to decide, and the polls in those key swing states should be brought up. And if you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at Florida, if you look at Georgia, Rust Belt, it seems that Donald Trump is the front runner at the moment. We could also see that in the bet makers, in the gambling industry, that right now $1.7 is given for every dollar invested for Donald Trump victory, while for Kamala Harris is 2.3. So this is quite a clear difference with clear front runner, which is a bit surprising, because a few weeks ago it seems that Democrats has regained the momentum and Donald Trump has lost it. But I think this is the case for this election, that the news cycle is very short and it's relatively easy to regain the momentum, but it's very hard to sustain it. And currently, Democrats has lost it, but we have seen finally some more brave interviews from Kamala Harris. Yesterday, she has been to Fox News with pretty good performance. Let me just bring you up some quotes. Let's be honest, I have no pride in saying that the immigration system in our country is working perfectly. Also, let me be very clear, my presidency won't be the continuation of Joe Biden. So being in the Fox News, where those issues are very important for Republican voters, and saying such clear statements, making some barricade between her and Joe Biden, might bring her up some voters from the Republican side, which she is aiming for. So let's see if she manages to regain this momentum, because it's a roller coaster this year. So maybe the coin will be flipped a few more times in those 3 weeks heading towards the elections.
All right, roller coaster indeed. And you actually brought up a very important point when it comes to reading these polls. We kind of have this tendency to hyper-focus on the popular vote, even though the U.S. presidential election is indeed decided by the Electoral College. And when it comes to these swing states, it does look like it's leaning Donald Trump a little bit. Now, I would like to draw attention to what you just mentioned earlier. Like Harris is now finally going in the media blitz to try to regain some of the support. But a lot of people are also pointing to the fact that the more she appears in the media being interviewed, I'm also observing the betting odds, and they tend to have a kind of opposite effect, where whenever she puts herself out there in the media, we see more kind of positive prediction for Donald Trump. Do you think these are kind of linked together, or is it like a situation where perhaps the causation and the trend doesn't really have any correlation?
I think her problem is that she's not a good performer. She's not a best interviewee. When she's prepared, when she has ready speech, when she knows what to say. And I will give 3 examples. The Democrats' convention, the debate versus Donald Trump, and right now yesterday's interview in the Fox News. She was really well prepared. She knew what she wanted to say. She was maybe not super charismatic, but she did her homework. The problem she has is those spontaneous interviews, is the spontaneous switch. As a candidate for the most important job in the USA, you are constantly in front of the mic. You constantly have to deliver speeches. And with those more minor speeches, we can see that she's still a bit awkward, a bit cringe. She laughs. She's doing unpredictable comments. She doesn't seem that much authentic as Donald Trump seems. So when she takes her time to prepare herself, she is performing well, and then we see the results in the polls. But it's not enough. Like, she cannot hide herself to prepare forever. Like, she has to keep campaigning. She has to keep talking to the people, and that's when it starts to get awkward. That's when it starts to get bad for her. So so let's see if she's gonna take some lessons, if she's gonna continue giving interviews. I think this interview to Fox News was basically aimed at motivating the undecided Republican voters to vote for Harris, but the same has to be done with liberal media. She has to deliver some interviews to undecided Democrats. She finally commented on immigration. There is a big push right now for her to comment on Israel, which she's avoiding to do so. So let's see if she will keep performing well on those interviews.
Right. So when it comes to these particular topic you're talking about, and especially driving out the Democratic base, I saw some very alarming numbers for the Democratic camp as well when it comes to support of the minority population. Traditionally, we see over 90% support of the black population for the Democratic Party. Doesn't matter what candidate it really is, but we've seen that kind of dwindling in this election cycle compared to Barack Obama's kind of 81% lead on the Republican Party. Kamala Harris only enjoys a 42%, almost half of the lead when it comes to the black population, Hispanic population. What happened there?
We can only speculate, but I think I have two suggestions. One is that the fact that you're a person of color does not mean that you have to vote against Trump. And I think this stigmatization is working not in favor of Democrats, that for a lot of people of color, they don't find comments of Trump racist. They don't find them problematic. And there are other issues like economy, like the migration also. They don't find that much in common with people that are already in the America compared to people that are coming to America. So their first choice is Trump, despite those controversial comments. So there are different issues driving those people to the ballots than just the fact that other candidate is the person of color as well. Another question is the question if America is ready for a woman as a president. You know, like those we can also see this represented in the polls. I think this is the problem of this election, that is very hard to predict all these factors influencing the final decision of the voters. Like both in 2016 and 2020, there were factors not taken into the accounts by poll makers. I think right now, those factors that are unpredictable are counted in like thousands, you know. So it's very difficult to predict. We have for the first time a woman of color running for the candidate. For the first time, and her candidate was convicted. For the first time, he was assassinated. There was assassination attempt directly in the campaign. There is so many small issues that could affect those final results that we can try to divide them to some separate factors, but they are all interconnected. And I think until the very last day, we will be unsure of the final result.
Right, and definitely it's going to be very hard to tell what are some of the factors that are driving out some of the voters. I think one of the very key points right now is also driving out their own electorate base to vote for the candidates. Now, we do see voter turnout appears to be higher in 2020 when it comes to the early voting already. So this is going to be very, very highly contentious. What can either of the camp do to drive out their base and motivate them even more to kind of bring them over this kind of 270 electoral college vote threshold?
This is early voting is a sign in favor of Donald Trump, because early voting was always working in favor of Democrats. Always was this registration has taken place in big metropolis, in big cities. Currently, we see the big wave of registering in suburbs, in the province, among Republican voters. So this is another, sign suggesting that it might be Donald Trump in the end. But we see doing everything possible by the candidates. Recently, Donald Trump made this awkward performance in front of the women voters, because 16% more of likely women voters are going to vote for Harris, comparing to just 7% more decided men are going to vote for Trump. So there is a big difference based on the gender. So Trump is trying to reach out to conservative women. Yesterday we have seen that this performance was kind of awkward and unsuccessful, comparing to better reach of Kamala Harris towards the Republicans. In Poland, we are seeing unprecedented, I would say, try to reach out to the Polish minority, to Polish descendants, with Donald Trump praising the patron of our foundation, Casimir Pulaski, recently, with Kamala Harris directly addressing them in Pennsylvania during the debate in Pennsylvania, where there is like even 800,000 of Polish descendants. But exactly, those are Polish descendants. This is not exactly Polish minority as we understand it in the European sense of view. They have something in common with Poland, but because they compare to similar communities of Irish or Italian people nearby. So they are Americans with some Polish. Those were people that emigrated to the United States 100 years ago to find jobs in factories. Those were jobs that have been outsourced, that has been taken away from America. So this is a typical profile for a Trump voter, and whether those people understand the geopolitical situation in Central and Eastern Europe is quite doubtful.
All right, so of course, this is going to go down to a razor-thin margin, at least according to the polls. And whether or not that's going to be reflected in the Electoral College is another question. But meanwhile, thank you so much for helping us understand all of that. I really appreciate your input and insight. Thanks for being with us at TVP World.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.